So, Leslie, do you want to introduce yourself in the session while I'm getting your slides up?
Okay, all right. Welcome everyone to this kind of unusual session in which we're being serious, reviewing what we've been doing over the last decade in enabling fair data in the earth and environmental sciences in scholarly publications through the Coalition for Publishing Data in Earth and Space Science Group cluster, which is COPDES. And so you've got the session notes from the Kiko chat, and please put your affiliation in. And now we'll switch over to the slides. Again, maybe Shelley, you can put a link to the slides. So our session agenda is me doing a welcome. Then we're going to ask Kirsten to do a decade of COPDES and how we got involved in the FAIR project. Shelley will give a brief reality check. Okay, so we're going 10 years. What have we achieved? I'm just going to go forward with some new developments that are actually happening that if we're going forward, we need to take into consideration. But then we want to hand the whole thing over to group discussion and ask what should be the next our priorities for improving fair, compliant data in publications and ask who the key players are. Next
Leslie,
slide, please, Shelley.
one second, Leslie. I actually think there might be new people to Coptus in this room. So, anybody who's never heard of Coptus before and just
Well,
what, one, two,
Well,
three,
I will talk
four?
about
Okay.
that, Shelley, don't
Okay,
worry.
just recognizing we do have some new folks. So, okay.
Yeah, well, that's the idea of Kirsten's presentation.
Yeah. No, I just trying to warm up both online and in room. So, oops.
Well, we need warming up over in Australia because I think there was a frost this morning. Okay, so I'm doing the welcome. Next slide, please.
Sorry. There. Okay.
Okay, so again, this slides deck is in the folder. The notes you all got, and the session slides are there. Okay, maybe I'll put the links in the chat when Kirsten starts talking.
Yeah, I don't have access to the chat, so Kelsey's
all right, I'll
watching
do
it for
that.
me. Yep, that'd be great. Thanks.
Next slide, please. And so our session goals are to review prior COPTES related activities and enabling fair data in scholarly publications, but throw it over to you, the audience, to feel that what should be their priorities for COPTES in enabling fair data in scholarly publications. And so I'm just emphasising we really do want to hear from you as to what you think should be the priorities. Also, again, just a reminder, please fill in the attendance check-in list. I see you're all madly filling it in. So we can actually follow up with the people that are truly interested in this topic. Next slide, please. Okay, over to you, Kirsten. Tell us about COPTES, its history, and a bit on the FAIR project. Kirsten will now share her screen.
Yeah, I thought I can do that. Is it there?
Yep.
Yep, looking good.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to run fairly quickly through the history of COPTES and its achievements because Shelley will also talk about that. And this is really meant to trigger, your thoughts about, what the future of COPTES can be and what we have done. Let me just see. Okay, this is basically a reminder. Oh my God, now I have something covered. So it doesn't matter. You don't see that sidebar, right? Overlapping my slides.
No, no, it's clear for
Oh,
us.
okay, then it's all good. So yeah, this is kind of a reminder of, Coptis, the times in which Coptis was created, which was in 2014. This was a time where a lot of open science and open data policies were emerging, both at governments, at journals, and funders, and so on. And as some of the examples here, it's more specific to the US. It was the White House memos that came from OSTP in 2011 and in 2013 on open data sharing. And in that time of, in advancing open science, NSF also started to require data management plans in 2011. So it was a time where a lot was happening in this world. What that triggered also was the creation of quite a number of generalist repositories. Among them, as an example here, was Zenodo that was launched in 2013. It was also a time where data citation started, and the minting of DOIs for data was progressing. DataCite had been founded in 2009. I remember my repository starting to assign DOIs shortly after, but many came a bit later in this. Something to remember is that Coptis was started when the FAIR principles were not yet known or published. They were actually developed more or less at the same time as Coptis was created. And catalogs of data repositories were starting to emerge. For example, R3 Data was launched in 2012. So that's, whoop, why does it not advance? Okay. So at that time, we had already discussions in my field in geochemistry between data repositories and publishers. And it was more or less coincidence that I talked at an AGU fall meeting with Brooks Henson, and he said, this is something that we should do for all of the earth sciences. And so with this rationale, we started looking at, ways to better connect data repositories and publishers. And the drivers really were that we clearly acknowledged that scholarly publication remained a key entry point for researchers to make their data accessible. But the data were submitted in random formats. Nobody was controlling that really. They were not structured. Quite often we had data tables still as images in publications and so on. At the same time, we did already have domain repositories that focused on making sure that the data were of quality, that the metadata were included, that they were becoming really reusable and important, valuable resources that would facilitate new science and new discoveries. So we came to the conclusion that the connection between publishers and domain repositories was essential to grow the adoption of best practice. So why did Coptis become a publisher data repository effort, and was not the data repositories reaching out to researchers or the editors? The real driver here was that if you're talking with people at the highest level, with the publishers, we can influence policy, and it is easier to multiply the reach and impact. And I have specifically put this slide in because I think it was the right step at the beginning of Coptis to work with publishers, but we're feeling the need increasingly to work more closely with editors, and we may want to come back to that later. So this is just to show this was actually something that we did in geochemistry back in 2008, 2009, to talk with editors and who understood the daily problems dealing with authors who did not document their data well or did not include all data and so on. So this was a first example of impact that happened through the interaction of editors and data providers. But as I said, we then decided to broaden the scope and try to build this communication between journals and data repositories on all earth and environmental sciences basis. And for that, we looked for money. This was Brooks Henson and me looking for money to run a workshop. And I have underlined here a sentence from this proposal for funding a workshop, saying that the best practices that we aim to develop will include standards for archiving and curating data sets, setting references and identifiers, linking them to publications, integrating with emerging data citation practices and bibliometrics for data, and complying with interoperability standards. And that's a huge goal that was way beyond what we were going to achieve through a workshop. But the workshop happened. It had more than 70 people there. It was held at the AGU headquarters in Washington, moderated by Joel Kutscher-Gershenfeld. And you can see a whole bunch of people that some of you may recognize who contributed substantially to creating the vision of an effort that would bring on a regular basis together the repositories and the publishers. The workshop was very interactive and brought in the perspectives of both the repositories and the publishers. The important thing that came out of it was there is a huge need for these two groups to come together and collaborate, coordinate, and so on. But the participants clearly were against some type of formal organization. They just wanted a forum for ongoing exchange and dialogue. So COPTIS was created as what we at the time called Permanent International Coordinating Conference of Publishers and Data Facilities and Consortia. And we initially said, oh, we will then talk about the future structure of COPTIS in future workshops. But COPTIS basically stayed what we had initially decided. What was important was within the workshop already, we started to draft a statement of commitment that in the end was released in early 2015. And the most important sentence in that statement of commitment was that the Earth and space science data should, to the greatest extent possible, be stored in appropriate domain repositories that follow leading practices and can provide additional data services. That was the start of, emphasizing the relevance of domain repositories for making data reusable. Okay, that was. So from this initial focus, COPTIS had taken on all kinds of discussions over time. As I said, it was 10 years. So in the early days, we focused on developing guidelines that allowed journals to follow a consistent structure for their data policies. Now that was, it had some impact, but it wasn't fully successful. We also started to create a data repository directory because that was one of the concerns of journals saying, we don't know what repositories are out there where we should send our authors. And so there was a lot of discussion on selection criteria for data repositories and so on. But then other bigger efforts started like RE3 data, and we actually merged with them saying we don't want to duplicate effort here. And we started to look into guidelines for data citation and trying to address the challenges related to that. Then in 2016, with AGU obtaining funding from oh God, now I forget the name of the foundation again that funded the Fair Data Project. Shelley will be able to tell you. And that really brought in resources for supporting real effort in developing and implementing consistent fair data policies. Since the end of the Fair Data Project, ESIP has become the home of COPTIS as a cluster, and the focus has been on following up on what the Enabling Fair Data Project had achieved, because there are quite a number of unsolved pain points in implementing the fair data guidelines. One of the effects had been the success of the Enabling Fair Data Project, in that more submissions went to repositories that needed to somehow scale their effort and funding to handle these increased data submissions. What also became more obvious is the need to synchronize policies, procedures, and workflows within the journals and within the data repositories. And we will hear more about that, I think. And again, we're still dealing with data citation to make it fully work. So the Enabling Fair Data Project, I mentioned, that was run by AGU. It was a multi-year effort and really highly successful. Again, I just have one slide about the outcomes, and I think the most important two sentences here are: supplements will no longer be primary archives for data, and the data are cited via persistent identifiers. And that has really been adopted by many journals, and supplements have disappeared in many of the journals. Not fully, there is still work to be done. It led to the adoption of a shared set of author instructions, and provided also guidelines in what to expect from publication peer review when evaluating and determining if the data, metadata, and software are adequate. Okay. So as I mentioned, COPTIS was created as an informal and volunteer-driven initiative that was a very conscious decision of participants at the 2014 workshop. They didn't want a charter, they didn't want a formal governance. So COPTIS remains run by some executive committee that organizes the meetings and agendas. And I think this is also a point that should be discussed at today's meeting, because it will influence how COPTIS will evolve into the future. I mentioned it's obviously an ESIP collaboration area since 2018, and runs now monthly meetings that are organized through ESIP, but it continues to run in-person meetings at conferences such as AGU and EGU. That is a really important aspect for people to continue the exchange, especially as, one of the things that I think isn't quite working is the publishers and editors are missing in the participation in these monthly meetings that have to go through ESIP. So looking at a summary of what COPTIS achieved, I think the most important really is that for over 10 years now, there has been an organization, in some way, a forum that has made possible this dialogue between publishers, editors, and data repositories, which has grown awareness of the mutual challenges, of the mutual needs, and so on. Two widely endorsed statements of community commitment have been endorsed and signed by lots of organizations, societies, publishers, individuals, and so on. The Enabling Fair Data project was a big success that led to advanced, consistent implementation of best practices for fair data. Whoops, what is this? And we now also have this RDA working group of repository to publication that has started last year formally and is trying to coordinate policies and procedures in publications, in the scholarly publication process and at data repositories. This is my brief reality check, and I'm curious now to see what Shelley will bring. I think the research data management community and the publishers continue to show a lot of interest in Coptis, show up at the meetings, especially the in-person meetings and so on. But on the researcher side, the authors, the use of generalist repositories is growing relative to domain repositories, and the trend is not what Coptis wants to advance. So we have a problem, I think, that we need to address. The other problem that we're still dealing with is the lack of community data standards, of discipline-specific data standards that are essential for interoperability and reusability. So we're not addressing the full FAIR principles. And the biggest issue, I think, today is the resilience and sustainability of domain repositories in uncertain times. I think where I think things need to change is we do have limited international participation, especially from data repositories in our ongoing meetings. That is partly a time zone problem. We have started to have two meetings, one for the more US and Europe time zone, the other more Australia, Asia time zone, but I think there is still not enough participation. We have limited participation of editors and publishers in these ongoing meetings, and a problem for Coptis remains the lack of resources. It's all volunteer work at the moment. So with this, I think I will hand over, yes. And I can stop my sharing, unless there are any questions now.
We do have a couple minutes for questions. Kirsten has really spearheaded the concept of Coptis from the very beginning, and having her do this history really has always been meaningful to me because of the number of people that have been involved over time. And you all have your own experiences with moving data management, software management forward over the last 15, 20, 25, 30 years, maybe more for some. Any questions for Kirsten? No? Okay, it's formidable. It's formidable. The number of people, Kirsten, I think the email list that we have are like 400 to 500 people internationally, which have risen and surged and waned over time, but it's a lot of people. Okay, all right, I will go ahead and bring up my slides that Leslie and I share. I'm a Mac girl, I'm on a PC. Okay, there we go. I used to be a PC girl. All right, so Kirsten really summarized the challenge incredibly well, and I'm just going to give you some numbers to help you frame it in your mind. These we did this particular metric in 2022. It's very manual, so it stands pretty strongly still today. If it starts to adjust, we'll go ahead and try to do some more. So this is AGU's experience. It's probably worth my sharing with you that coming out of the Enabling Fair Data project in 2018, 2019, there was a moment in time where I was learning how to use the tools for Crossref and for DataCite to make sure that all of our data citations were machine actionable. What happened is I took a look at what we were sending through from all the accepted publications into the registry agency's Crossref. There's a paper, if these are new words to you, there's a paper to describe it all. And zero machine actionable data citations from all of AGU's journals for the last 5 years. Zero data citations made it through. And I remember sitting, learning this. I was in plenary at RDA. I was in the middle of the room in plenary. And had you been sitting behind me, it was one of those big classrooms. I'll think of the country, Helsinki. I was in Helsinki. And if you were standing behind me in plenary, you would have thought I had lost my mind because I was all over the place with my arms and my legs, and I was livid, but I couldn't make a noise because there was presentations going on. So we got a grant, an NSF grant, which was easier to do at the time, to work through the problem. And the problem was multifold. Many layered, for those of you who understand the concept of the leaky pipe. And after a lot of work, AGU's numbers on machine actionable data citations went up, including the percent of citations within each of our journals. So the next slide will show that. So to put that in perspective, after we got all of that done, now we're taking a look at exactly where those data citations are. And it won't shock you, I don't think, that Zenodo is a favorite. And it really, I think the argument here is there's perfectly good data sets that are, say, derived data products or, some not reusable data set, but only useful for a particular paper that makes sense going in Zenodo. But if you have data that is primary observational data, it shouldn't be there. And then the question is why. Now, incredible kudos to EarthChem, hello Kirsten, because you see they're the third most popular repository, and that's a lot of work on Kirsten's side, including a lot of grumbling about the amount of work, which was a byproduct of pushing researchers internationally to EarthChem. So, and then Kirsten, I don't know if you want to jump in, but you made a lot of changes to streamline your input. I'll give you a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we noticed, we didn't make that many changes. We put templates out and we have trained researchers. So once they come back and have done the whole process one time with our guidance, they do a lot better. And so, that's where I think our streamlining is happening. We are in the process of developing tools to further streamline them.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really important. And there's a lot more analysis that can be done. Are these, coming out of satellites and primary observational? Are they, what are they exactly? Why is NCAR so small? Why is NASA so small? Does that have to do with the fact that we don't force researchers to actually cite the initial data product? There's a whole fun conversation to have with this. So that's a pending discussion. I'm gonna, you can't see, here, let me scoot some faces up and out. Oh, come on. There we go, okay. So now we're digging in more. These are all machine actionable citations, the percentage of AGU articles on the left, and of all of AGU's, I'll look at 24. So the none going through Crossref, you can see in 2019, this is frightening. You can see our new NSF grant work with training the editors kicks in 22. I have other slides to show that particular pilot and that effort. That was all done within our publications team. It was really a lot of work. And then in 24, the editors are now understanding. They have more checklists on how to deal with data citation. To my knowledge, there isn't any other society working as hard. That's an opportunity for us. 72% of all papers have a data citation. I can't tell you anything but that number because it's a proxy number. We know it because we have an in-text citation. It's in the availability statement. That means it's in the reference section. We don't know a lot about it. We know what the repository is, but we don't know its role within the research. We don't know if anything is missing. We don't know if it is correct. It is a citation. That's all we know. So there's an opportunity to learn. And we don't have a mandatory policy for software citations, albeit our editors care about software. They push it, especially our modeling journals. So there's 25% with no work. And it also tells you that it's easier to cite software because of the bridge between GitHub and Zenodo. It's just a lot easier. I don't know a lot beyond that. We do encourage links to GitHub in the availability statement, but those are not persistent identifiers. So, okay. So this is useful information to track, and I hope these numbers continue to go up over the years. There are other projects happening at AGU, but I think this is for COPTUS, some of the most important numbers to share with you. So let me move on to the folks in the Repo to Pub project. I have 2 slides for Repo to Pub. They have been working, they've been re-looking at, specifically from the discipline-specific point of view of the repositories. So this is Danny Kincaid, Natalie Rea. Leslie, you're on that one, right? Aren't you a co-chair on that?
Yes, and Matthew Walker.
And Matt Wark from Taylor and Francis. Taylor and Francis has a portfolio similar to Wiley, and that's why it was important to get him. We have to diversify. Having a Wiley person on is, we know we're going to get Wiley on board. So we needed Taylor and Francis on board. And because they're so similar, they're essentially, they split the societies mostly. I mean, that's not 100%, but they're society publishing partners. AGU uses them up to the point of acceptance. Other society use them for their full workflow, Wiley, and then the whole set on the Taylor and Francis side. So having Taylor and Francis as part of that, and so I'll hop to that project in a moment, but while that project was going on, Repo to Pub, they made a connection into this European Commission-funded Tier 2 group who's working on the challenges around reproducibility, the reproducibility crisis. There are a number of pilot groups making good progress. This is mostly in Europe, but they do have a few other partners, very few in the US. And Pilot 8 is very specifically for the publishers. And they were tracking on some of the same issues as one does when you want to put repositories and publishers together. So they've been connecting, There's only publishers on this group. So you have a real biased view. We wish them the best. They've learned a lot from Natalie and Danny and the team, and vice versa. So it's good to track it. They're not focused very much on the natural sciences. They're really biased humanities. That's fine, no harm. You can get it from any side, just fix it. We'll benefit. If you fix it there, we'll benefit, that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna leave that here. So that's really good to know about. But then more towards the work, this is Repo to Pub. I'm sorry they don't have it in parens. It's got a long title, but the shorthand is Repo to Pub. Oh, there you are, Leslie. So you can join this group, and I highly recommend that you do. You can keep up with the information. So pop over to RDA and join the group. We do make sure that our Coptis updates include repo to pub, and this is very much the repositories and the journals. So they've been really digging in on use cases, and right now they have an IRB approved survey where they're going journal to journal to get the information that they need. And the understanding of the complexity of the journal workflow is coming through, which we expected that it would. And so we're really hoping. Now, you all know that if you're making a decision to go to a discipline-specific repository at the time of publication, you miss the boat because it takes so much time. Right. So this is important to understand, and it's important to have the numbers, but it won't be the only, we have to have a solution that backs up in time, in addition to this. So just know that there will have to be more pieces to this puzzle. Okay, I think that's the end. Leslie, I think I hand it over to you now. So this is just a summary of what I just said, giving you an update. And then we'll have a little bit more. Leslie, I think it comes over to you. Yes, yes, new developments. Okay, I'll come back, but Leslie takes us forward. Go ahead. If you're talking, Leslie, you happen to be on mute.
Okay, sorry, let's see how we go. Okay, right. So all I want to do here and quickly is just highlight some projects that are going on, which I think will impact on us helping to solve this issue. And I think Shelley had some really good words that right now with citations in publications, we're citing the data, but we're not making it reusable. If the data sets are in Zenodo or the generalist repositories with minimal metadata, then we just know where to find it. So these are the 3 projects I'll highlight. Next slide, please. And so just recapping, I think even Kirsten said we're doing well in the findable and the accessible, but the interoperable and reusable need disciplinary input. And also, if we're really true about FAIR, and I know Shelley said this as well, about, just leave it on that one, that it's got to be machine actionable. And most of these data citations in publications, the metadata's not machine readable, let alone the data. So just moving to this was a project we did in Australia where some new funding was announced about what we could do, what infrastructure we could invest in to uplift FAIR and CARE across the Australian research sector. I've got the links to the paper, but the conclusion we came from this was that even if the researchers genuinely wanted to make their data FAIR compliant, we didn't have the infrastructure. So the survey, we found that many Australian research repositories don't even have a catalogue. So if you don't have a catalogue, how do you get the metadata? Again, with mindful of the I2, that metadata and data principle use published vocabularies that are themselves FAIR. There was limited places that people could genuinely publish vocabularies and make them FAIR. Surprisingly, in some institutions, even being able to obtain a DOI for their data set within the institutional repository was not possible. And so you started to get this picture. No wonder they're going to Zenodo. And then my final comment, which will come back later, is licensing. So actionable FAIR is not going to happen quickly because we don't have the infrastructure to support researchers. Now, that's an Australian finding here. I don't know whether it's the US. Next slide, please. This is another work that is not complete. It's in progress, and I've given you the link to it. And what they're doing is, to me, very similar to what we did with the Arnold project on enabling FAIR. How do we enable CARE in publications? And it's a brilliant piece of work they've come up with. You can see on the right, I've just put the workflow, and they've got all these considerations. And my mind, having gone through the FAIR project, is, oh my gosh, you're going to hit the same barriers. Do you target the publishers? Do you target the editors? How much help do you need from the societies? And so I'm just throwing this out because I'm kind of part of this work, even though it won't be published till the end of the year. And I just keep thinking, oh my God, you're wanting similar connections to what we want for FAIR. If we're going forward, should we also consider doing it jointly where they do overlap? They don't always overlap, but definitely it. And then out of this piece of work, there was this brilliant figure that comes from a paper by Lydia Jennings et al. And you can see how responsiveness to change and organisational complexity. And so it made me think what we're trying to do with making data sets in publications fully FAIR compliant. And really, we've got a few, on the left-hand side, individual researchers, research teams who are responding to what we're doing, but really we need to move the needle the whole way along. Next slide, please. This is just about engaging with societies and researchers, because this also came out of the Repo to Pub working group, that we do need to engage the societies and AGU sections, because they're the ones that help us determine what are the correct, if that's the right word, endorsed standards for vocabularies and science. And this project is going to work with seismology and oceanography and hydrology communities. You've got a link to the thing, and you can see how complex the whole project is about working within the communities to efficiently manage and share FAIR research outputs. Noting we wanted to get the I and the R. I've also put this paper here, and these guys also, like seismology, like FAIR, they started in 2014, and they've done an assessment. Well, how fair are they? And they're ticking the box for the DOI and findable and accessible, but they admit in this paper they're a long way from INR. And so I'm just trying to say that we're starting to get documentary evidence of how to move the citation, move the connection of the papers in publications from being simply citation to enabling reusability. Next. Okay, so now, we're 3 minutes ahead of time. Wow, I was hoping we'd have sufficient time for discussion. And we want to throw it over to you. What should our focus be going forward? What are your opinions? I think the next slide. Okay, so look, these are potential topics. We're not sticking to them if you want to do something else, but I just put those in, and if you go to the session notes, we can actually use those for comments and chats, and you can put in if you want new ones. But I think we've got fairly good evidence from the presentations on what worked, what didn't. How many key players do we need at the table? I think we've got this growing recognition. We need the societies, AGU sections, more than what we've used them in the past. Do we need to lower our expectations of enabling FAIR data in publications? And then I'm just also throwing out my suggestion that given how advanced the care people are getting on governance of Indigenous data in publications, should we also, because we're going to be talking to the same people, include them? Kirsten's put in the point of Coptus sustainability, and I don't know what else you want, but this is now open mic, open discussion, and I hope you're all prepared to talk and give us suggestions and move it forward. So, Shelley, I think it'd be easier. I'll monitor the chat in Zoom if you can run it from within the room. I don't know how many people you have in the room.
Yeah, we're up to 28 people in the room, by the way.
Okay.
Just thought you'd be happy about that.
For questions.
And we do have a mic to run around. Shall I stop sharing, or do you want me to leave it up?
Well, there's that, or do we? put the session notes up. I don't know, whatever everyone thinks is easiest.
Okay. I'm
If
going.
you all got the link to the session notes.
The session notes. So I think you can get to them through Kiko Chat.
You go to the actual room.
Okay. Kelsey, can you bring them up so I can share them online? The session notes? Oh, thanks, Leslie. Okay, maybe I'm gonna cheat.
Yeah,
Watch me cheat. Oh.
I think go the other way.
Oh. It's like lefties and righties, the roll up and roll down people. Ugh. There it goes. Other way. I'm clear the other person. Okay. Hey, if you haven't yet put your name in, especially if you really enjoyed being voluntold, so please do. Never know what will happen. All right. Okay, so right here, Leslie, is that where we want to take notes?
Yeah.
Or do you have it?
Well, I can't see what you're sharing.
Right. I'm in the session notes.
Are you sharing your
Okay.
screen anymore though?
No, I'm
Yes, you
not.
are.
Can you-
Wait.
Inside I
to
am, but not
Zoom.
outside. Hang on.
Okay. What the heck? Oh. Where's Zoom? Oh, there we go. I'm a
We're
Mac.
we're
I'm a Mac
really
girl
good.
too.
I know, it's you have to like think hard.
Okay, there we go. We're going full
And
screen, right?
yes, we
Okay.
are. Okay, all right. Woo, there we are. Okay, so in the room,
I'll run the mic.
okay, the right mic is being run. Anybody online have a thought? Why didn't you talk about this? Why? Okay, we have one inside, so go ahead, Joseph. Say who you are.
Okay. Hi, I'm Joseph Gum. I could probably talk about a lot of this for the rest of the 45 minutes, but I won't. Tomorrow, we actually have two sessions, one about migrating data from specialist repositories to generalist repositories as a case study. We have 3 case studies tomorrow. And then we have a paired session right after that I will live demo migrating a data set into Zenodo, trying to add as much metadata as possible to make it as machine actionable and fair as possible. So if there are any questions in here that we do not answer, feel free to drop by and continue to ask them tomorrow.
That'll be very interesting.
So can I just quickly ask Joseph what the drivers are to migrate data sets from a domain repository into Zenodo?
So one of them is CDAC,
Oh, I
part
see.
of Columbia
I see.
University, and funding was cut there. Another repository will be sunsetted in August and will no longer exist, and so it's being moved to a Zenodo community as much as possible. And I don't know off the top of my head for the third case study that we have for the first session, but generally it's budget driven.
I can see that, yes.
So, we can still, in some ways, we can still pay for people to do the work. Although I know there are lots of AI sessions trying to put us out of business here this week. But also, even if we can pay the people, maybe we can't pay for the infrastructure. So that's why we're using somebody else's infrastructure and storage to, and still try to have this happy middle ground of as machine actionable, as fair as possible.
Okay. We have another question in the room. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Mark Parsons, Interim Executive Director of ESIP. I think I missed something. I have 2 questions of clarification. So when you had your crisis of 0 citations and then translated that crisis into an opportunity and got the grant, and then now citations are in AGU journals, was the issue a technical? I thought the issue was a technical issue between Crossref and DataCite, but it sounds like with the way you're describing things, it was a human issue, like editors actually enforcing to make it happen, or was it both?
It was both, and probably there's some other layers in there as well. I don't think we wrote the social article on this yet. We have an intention to actually write, like, then this happened and they were mad, and right like that. By the way, a glass of wine, I'll tell you the story. But so when we dug in, first of all, there wasn't enough education to anybody at the front end, the authors, anybody. Like, when I came to RDA and turned around and said to my staff, you know what a data citation is, right? Oh yeah, Shelley, go off. We will make it happen. Oh no clue. No clue. No, the data availability statements weren't fully understood, and it wasn't because they were lying. They just they didn't know there was a better way. You can say it, but until you're like, okay, let's piece it together. And when you talk to a researcher, they're going to use words that don't match these words. You have to know what they're talking about and fish out the answer, because it's new for them too. So it was an entire, like, really cultural socialization. And what we ended up doing with that additional NSF grant is walk a pilot program, journal by journal, by journal by journal. And it took 3 years, which drove me crazy because I wanted it done today. No, to do it right with the time, we hired more staff, which no journal wants to do. And now we've reabsorbed that staff. So we used to have somebody specific for data, and now we don't. It's now absorbed because now we have it built into the current processes. So,
But there was also technical issues as well,
Yes.
right? Because I cited data back in the aughts,
yeah, so
and it was there in the reference list, so the
Yeah.
human could get to it, but it never made it into the index.
So along the production path, there were multiple issues. The copy editors, which were in a different country, didn't know what to do. It had to be coded as a data citation, which Wiley didn't have in place. So 2 years of layer, and it still wasn't working. And now it was a beloved single point of failure publishing platform used by most journals that had an ego issue. We ran a sting operation on them, and they had it fixed in 3 weeks. So,
Okay, yeah, many thoughts and comments.
Right.
We don't have to go down.
And-
That's many glasses of wine, but
that problem, most journals still have that issue. That thing that I'm talking about, we fixed it on one platform. There's
Right.
3 major platforms. I've not called the other 2. Somebody should call them.
But I think the reason I wanted to clarify this, because I think it highlights, especially to this crowd, that we can develop solutions. Very simple, easy to implement solutions. Data citation is not hard. But you still run into institutional barriers, socio-technical barriers, et cetera.
Yep.
So that's just sort of the point I wanted to get across.
And this group understands that. This is one of the best functioning groups to solve those problems. CopDesk, it truly is, because you have all the right people.
I mean, after, 15 years of beating our heads against the wall. Okay, the second point.
Oh, I'm
Second
not
point of
taking
clarification.
notes. Leslie, I'm not taking notes. Can you help?
You say that the data, now they're being cited, they're findable and they're accessible, but they're not interoperable and reusable. Are you just making it a leap that since they're in Zenodo, they're not interoperable and reusable?
Yes.
Okay. Because as Joseph just said, that's not, it's highly likely to be the case, but it's not necessarily the case.
That is true. That is
Okay.
absolutely true. So that number, that percentage is so big.
Right, and on the flip side, data can be in a domain repository and not be interoperable or reusable. So it's not just a question of the repository, it's the, the license.
So you have to dissect the question.
Metadata and the actual principles.
You have to dissect the question. To your point, and by the way, you predicted this in enabling fair data. You, at the very beginning of the project, said, you're going to do a lot of work, but you're still going to have a major problem. And this is it. This is literally the project problem you predicted. And I tracked it the whole way, and I'm like, yeah, he's right yet again. And so the grant that Leslie had up, foraging, long 3-line grant, the one that was just awarded, some of you in this room have given us support letters for. I'm looking at Jerry and I'm looking at Rob and that's going to go to the researcher, go to the hydrologist using the AGU sections. So we realize. You're all going to go, yeah, that's useful, but the data types are shared across the section. Y'all, but the people are in the sections. So you go to the people and you start to get the folks that are interested, and we want their community. And they're all in. They're all in. They're ready for this. They have their own language to do this, and we're fine with that. And then we're going to marry it back up to informatics and hope that we create these sustainable communities where the repositories have yet even more connection into their researchers. And more importantly, the researchers see the repositories as a community resource, not as a place where their data goes to die, but where it's actually better than it was before. And it's that socialization and cultural change. There's a lot of assumptions that go into those statements. And all of the work you all have been doing over the last years, we're capitalizing on. Rob, you mentioned not to be yet spoken about DOI Magnificat that you're about to do. I'm really counting on that because I think it's going to solve a number of issues, but without connecting it to the researchers and letting them know how valuable it is what you're about to do, and they will. They're going to care.
Well, the reason is, what my understanding is.
Can someone put a mic on, Rob?
Well, I'm also talking over Leslie, she does have.
Oh, Leslie, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Okay.
Oh, no. Continue, keep going. I just want to come in with something new. So let's keep this thread going. It's good.
Okay, I always want to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Mind your manners.
He is. He is.
I think when it comes to researchers, they want to get their paper published.
Yeah.
There's now a new requirement that's being thrown in front of them that's stopping that.
Yeah.
And so they're going to look for the simplest possible path to cross that boundary.
Zenodo, right?
And even if all the other markups and recipes and stuff like that would benefit the community as a whole, publishers are not always so, broad thinking when they need to publish in order to not perish. So I think that's the biggest issue is we need to find a way to bring things closer together so the publishers feel compelled to go the extra mile, or the researcher needs to go the extra mile, and the publisher will accept that and not have it be a big, huge barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new burden for the researchers. No, it's not. It's the old burden. We used to cite data, then it went digital, and we forgot how to do it. This is doing science. It's showing the evidence behind your work. If you don't do that, you're not doing science.
We. Okay, we're gonna give 2 minutes to this rant. Go ahead.
Okay. It is related, but I did see an actual hand online too, but I don't know if she wants to talk. So the conversation I think that needs to be had, and I don't know if Coptis is where this happens, but it's related to the DORA stuff on like,
Yeah.
how do you actually get into tenure and promotion committees, hiring committees, and say, publication is not the only product in science, And what is the actual metric? So the make data count thing, obviously, people probably know about that in here, but like, what is the actual metric that you need to evaluate a candidate for a position effectively that is not a for-profit journal page index?
Yes. Did anybody want to add on to the pile? Yes, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I can see it. I'm cheating.
I was just gonna build on what Rob said. I'm Andrew Child. I'm a data manager at University of Idaho. I curate our institutional repository, and so I get a lot of requests of people that are, ready to publish. I need a DOI. Looking for that low bar to clear so that they can publish. But a lot of their journals tell them to go to Zenodo. A lot of the journal, they show me this email that says, you need a DOI, please push your data into Zenodo. And there's a link that they just have to click on. And they say, should I do that?
Okay, is that an AGU journal or somebody else?
No, it's not an AGU.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and I've seen it from multiple journals. So like, I do think this is a real thing that even though journals want to make it that data is part of that product, they're really steering the researchers to a low bar.
True.
And so and I've told researchers this, like I can give you a better product even at my institutional repository than just tarballing your GitHub repo into Zenodo.
Fact. Okay.
And several of them turn me down and publish data sets that the name of the data set is,
The data for the journal article and such paper. Yeah.
or it'll just be like the directory of their GitHub,
My data.
YCT/my data
Yeah.
/2025.
Okay.
You know.
All right. Rant over. Okay. If you're building on the rant, forget it. Okay. Over to Nick.
So you mentioned, and we see this, I run a paleomagnetic and data repository for a few decades, and you do get the journals where they're like they've been accepted, they've had their rounds of editing and so on, and now like there's some field where they need the data citation, right? If you had it at the beginning, right, of the editors of the journals probably don't want this, but if there had to be some link to the data set originally upon submission and not on publication,
Yeah.
that would be a lot better.
I understand what you're saying. I'm going to hold on an opinion there, just because the Repo to Pub folks that roller coaster ride is a fun one with them, same topic. Yeah.
But like people work on their paper, right? And they get it into a form where it's going to go to reviewers.
And why couldn't they do that with their data?
And they just need to have that as,
Yeah. Yeah, no argument, no argument. So yes. How do we, so you go, okay.
What we've done over the decades is get people that are involved in our data repositories as editors, and then they say,
And they understand.
the scientists do it, or reviewers. If you're reviewing a paper, you say you need this data.
Yep.
And that can make it go earlier, but that's a very sort of long,
Okay.
train postdocs that become professors that train their students.
I'm all about a long train and a good cocktail. So, okay, all right. Hold all of you people.
But AGU, I guess there's a lot of people there that would have to be convinced to have this as part of their workflow.
Not actually, it's easier at AGU than it is, say, Elsevier. So we did a heliophysics, Coptus helio, we're talking over some folks here. So pause, we're going to pause, you and I, we're going to pause. Leslie, you have your hand up online. The
Okay, I
room's
just wanna
excited,
pick
by the
up-
way.
I just want to pick up on the comment about using Zenodo. I know you can set up a Zenodo community, and I know you can set up a template, and so only data sets that kind of comply with that template are picked up by Zenodo. But if you go to the I2 principle of the FAIR, which is critical to interoperability, the vocabularies and terms used to define, metadata and data, as well as the domain standards, need to be defined. And they need to be published and accessible. And that's the part where we've got things going into Zenodo, but even if you've got multiple groups using the same template, that template and the scientific meaning behind it, particularly when you get into provenance, need to be published independently. And that's where we're hoping to bring in the societies more. So again, with seismology, we're bringing in the FDSN. Kirsten's working her back off with One Geochemistry, trying to get the geochemistry groups to publish their definitions so that then the data becomes truly machine actionable and more readable. Over to you, Kirsten.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to bring the discussion back to what was said before, because I really want to figure out what can Coptis do to help. I mean, we want to discuss in this session what the future focus is going to be, and are there ways for Coptis to take a role in that issue of, or how can Coptis take a role in this issue of submissions to Zenodo? How can we take better advantage of, new functionality that's obviously available? I wasn't aware of the ability to set up templates and so on. Are there ways that, we can help with data, with making data curation still happen, even if Zenodo is the place where users want to submit?
I think that rolls back to Joseph's comment about the sessions for tomorrow, where they're going to do the specialist. And Canberra, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna update get the Zoom up here. I see your question. So tomorrow, let's take the question about, can the generalist repositories be more fair? And we're gonna let Joseph lead the way for tomorrow. You're gonna rock that, I see.
I'm happy to go on a rant about generalist repositories now, but I'm also happy to let other people get their rants out too.
Yeah, there's a question online in the chat.
There's a little bit of therapy happening today. Okay, here. Ken, is it you? Is it Ken, Casey?
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah.
Do you want me to screenshot the part about you? Okay, so Ken says, Ken, get yourself off mute. Setting aside fair for a moment, and then over to Matt in a moment. Our community often said that there were two primary motivations for data citation: authorship credit, yep, maybe researchers can get tenure by having their data cited, and scientific reproducibility. I would add transparency in there too. Now that 70% of AGU journal articles have data citations in them, are we seeing positive outcomes in authorship credit and scientific reproducibility? Do we have metrics for that? Ooh, that is a really good question. Okay. I have thoughts on this. Anybody in the room? This is a great question. There's issues with this too. Feeling it? Feeling it? Anybody jumping in? Alicia, you're having a minute. You're having a minute. Okay, we haven't heard from Douglas. Can you hold, Matt? Okay, all right.
Going to Douglas.
Going to Douglas, and then we're gonna put a bow on that one and hop over to Matt.
Citing data doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reproduce the research, right? That a lot of times when I see a lot of articles when they say we cite this data, but all those processing, the data is so large and we don't not provide any of those data used in the specific research. You can go to the data repository, find that data again, and then trying to reproduce what we did with the code when then the data version changed, and then the codes and the environment that's different. So citing data doesn't necessarily ensure that you can reproduce. And so we actually run a reproducibility challenge for the climate informatics, which is a data science community specific for climate science. And we trying to reproduce 6 published papers within the Environmental Data Science Journal that is a Cambridge University Press. And 2 of them was reproduced, right? For trying to get the figures from those 6 papers, only 2 of them can be reproduced, even when the authors provides codes and the same data, that because the environment and how you do set up some of those process really doesn't, it's not intuitive to reproduce a lot of those publications. So
The RDA data citation, dynamic data citation recommendation addresses that. they're a long way from getting that. I mean, no, it's actually in, but it's a long way from getting it published.
Yeah. I do recommend that this be a topic for COPTA, so we can put a bow on this. I was just contacted by people from Stanford yesterday on this very topic. Why is this not working? And they had some details, and okay, we're going to assign Douglas and Alicia to run that particular task group within, I see it happening right now. Over to Matt.
All right, thanks, Matt Marinick. So couple of points here.
Hang on, Matt. Matt,
Yeah.
before you go, the Canberra, if you don't know, we're having a Canberra hub meeting where a few of us are getting together in Canberra. They've just asked, can you make the text a bit bigger, please?
I did do
Okay.
that. Canberra, can you read it okay? Just like, I don't know, throw a snowball up or something.
It's not great. Can you just get rid of that document tabs thing, because that just takes up real estate? Just click the left pointing arrow on the left-hand side, and then maybe, yeah, that's better now, actually.
Back to you, Matt. Sorry about that interruption.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so a couple of points on Zenodo being fair. Zenodo has a page how they respond to all the FAIR principles. So they would probably argue with that claim that they're not fair. And I think maybe the bigger point there is that we don't really know what fair means. And there's a different, there's different considerations for an individual repository being fair versus a group of repositories being fair in the same way. That's an important distinction. Second point is on Zenodo. Zenodo is fantastic. How many of us have stuff in Zenodo? Everyone, just about everyone in this room. So the point is not Zenodo is a problem. And I would turn it around and say, if Zenodo is getting that much usage, why aren't we doing what they're doing or finding out what it is that they're doing? And if it's just speed, then how do we get faster? And how do we work with the publishers? So my maybe topic for COPTUS is, what do we need to do to be faster to get from publication to repository? What can publishers do if they want us to be using disciplinary repositories to get data from publications faster into repositories? You know, how do we have a one-click button from whatever publisher was to X repository, right? Let's think about what we can do to make things faster or more amenable to people using them. And I realize that's a big thing, and I know it's hard.
Kirsten, you're at, give you 1 second, Kirsten, and I'll head over your direction. Oh, the room's hands just went up. So both Dryad and Figshare have one-click options that have been integrated into most editorial managers. AGU almost implemented the Dryad one, and I'm like, oh, no, we can't play favorites to any repository. We didn't implement it, but others did. Kirsten, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Matt a little bit. I mean, ultimately, it's resources that the repositories don't have. But, you know, as we said before, Zenodo is just a submission without any review. And data review does take time. Even if you would apply any, you know, automated review, there has to be an eye from a person to look at it. When I think of our repository in geochemistry, we have 65 different methods that are coming in. There is no easy way to automate the data review. And I think the only way to make it faster is to drop the data review, and then we are nothing but the generalist repository. The advantage of a domain repository is that there are eyes that know the data and can make sure they are okay.
I don't want to lose our numbers. Who's next in our room? Oh, how about Chris in the back? He's been signposting for a while.
My arm's getting tired now. Hi, everybody. Chris Lenhart at NCAR. I don't really want to step into the COPTUS versus Zenodo thing, but I do think
Too bad.
thinking more seriously about how to co-opt or get them, you know, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. You know, leverage the communities in Zenodo to raise their standards to do more review, whatever. But I think there's a bigger problem. Which is that the funding isn't going to be there for institutional repositories, or it's going to be a lot less,
Yeah.
or, they're going away, whatever. The whole science enterprise is undermined. So I don't know to what extent Coptis can address that big question, but maybe thinking about some other ways to show the value of interoperable data. Here's cool data rescue stories that were enabled by Coptis or whatever. I mean, that's another whole level of challenge, but we're down in the weeds here about, well, how do we make somebody cite their data and do this and that and make it machine readable? But nobody cares in the society, right? Like, we have to make them understand.
Corey's not been heard yet. Can we let Corey go next?
Can I respond to John's question? He's been waiting for
Gray. Okay, hang on, Corey. Okay, go ahead, Joseph. John, we've got a response for you. John Ralph, hello.
Hi, John, it's Joseph. I would say yes. Gray is making things better. Gray is Generalist Repository
Ecosystem
Initiative. It's funded by the NIH. So the major generalist repositories, Zenodo, Dryad, Figshare, Harvard Dataverse, Mendeley. There's one more I'm missing off the top of my head.
Center for Open Science.
So Gray is funded by the NIH. They are adding in features that are important to NIH. There are a lot of NIH vocabularies that are in there. You can add ontologies, terms that NIH uses. There is not, because it's funded by NIH, it's not funded by NSF-GEO or anyone else, but Zenodo is open source. All of these, the other ones are not necessarily open source, but at least with Zenodo, run off of Invenio, any of us could add features to there. And in an age where funding is going down, maybe we cannot have 3 or 4 developers working on maintaining our own specialist repositories at each of our institutions, but if we can assign one developer to add these features from all of our institutions, now we're up to 20 developers all adding things on an open source platform. And a lot of university institutional repositories are based off of Zenodo. Again, Northwestern, Caltech, the list goes on in the US and in the rest of the world. Okay.
Hi, Corey, I'm starting a grad program at UC Davis in their soil and biogeochemistry group in the fall. Also been working for a number of years in carbon markets and data protocols around carbon removal science and the market side of that. I'd like to understand what are the sort of success stories for the I and the R in FAIR that people have seen. What I'm thinking about in particular is, and I don't know if this is a success story, but I kind of want to hear the opinion of other folks in this room. There was a project that I saw in the ESIP community Slack a couple months ago. It was from this for-profit organization called Send Science, I think, and they had this thing that they're calling FAIR2, FAIR squared. And I think you throw a FAIR2.json file in your data package, and they had a whole partnership with the Frontiers journal group, where now Frontiers has a data management platform that so there's a whole approach there. There's a lot that I see about that where I'm like, great, I'd love to see a JSON standard for a file in a data package and some clear guidelines around what that kind of thing should look like. There's a lot that I see as maybe going right about that, but there's a lot where I'm like, where are these folks coming from? I don't see them connected to any of the other more collaborative, open communities that I've seen for years working on this kind of stuff. So to the question of like, what can this group be doing in its sort of next phase, I'd love to have a clear place to go to understand what is this landscape looking like today for all of the different potential solutions, and what are some opinions about it, about what kinds of approaches make sense and don't. And it's okay if there's multiple approaches that seem to be hitting our needs on interoperability and reusability. before we get to a place where we want to necessarily all align on one, but at least making visible from a kind of community perspective, like what attempts are moving in the right direction would be valuable for me.
That's good. Thanks, Corey. I'm sorry, I lost track. Of course you can. Do what you think is right.
I'm following your lead.
Can we get the mic?
Can we
That
get
person.
the mic? 1 second, the mic is, go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, so I didn't introduce myself before, sorry. I'm Alicia Wood-Charlson. I'm currently the Data Stewardship Committee Chair for another couple of days at least. But we did have the Fair Square came and they hosted it, and that video is available if people want to watch it. I also followed up with them, and we have a pilot project going in because I want to actually understand what they're doing. They did suggest that the code for the validation component will be made available, open source on GitHub. The AI agents that are built into the portal on the Frontier side, of course, are being paid for by Frontiers. So that would be the limitation, is you'd have to have, if you want your agent buddy to help you do your metadata checks, that's something that you would have to submit to Frontiers in order to get. But they're open to having other journals potentially work with them. I don't know if that's something Wiley would be interested in, but possibly, right? So
now
the
you
other
made
thing,
me make
if
a
I
phone
could, I wanted to just say, I hesitate to overload FAIR. It's a set of principles that were domain agnostic. And I have this conversation with our community, so I'm a microbiologist, right? And so I am sort of peripheral to, like, all of the data that you have impact my little bugs, and my little bugs impact some of your data. But we always get into this conversation that interoperability means you have to use the standards for genomic sequencing. And I'm like, that's not what it says, right? You have to declare what it is, but like when you open up the file, the terms that are actually used are dependent upon the domain. So we're getting into how do you cope with FAIR? And that is, how do you make data comparable? How do you make it organized? How do you make it predictive, right? Because in our biological system, biology systems, we want to actually be able to predict what biology is going to do as the climate changes. And then how do you engage the community to validate the data, to do the QA, QC checks, et cetera? So we're calling it COPE. How do you cope with FAIR?
Is that an acronym or a?
It's an acronym.
It's a condition.
It's not a set of principles. It's kind of a more of an interactive, get dirty community engagement component to like actually making principles work for a domain. And I'll add in the acronym what it is in the notes, Shelley.
Okay, it's a thing though?
Well, we have a paper in review to see how well our petition for it goes through, but we're building tools to do it, right? So comparable data needs to have properly labeled ontologies, right? And so you can train AI to like have data coming off of a stream, like, oh, I think these ontologies are appropriate. These look like genes, these look like proteins, there's structural domains to it. And then the organized part is how do you actually organize it in like a Jupyter notebook or in a spreadsheet so that you don't have to go through and download a bunch of data files and then copy and paste columns to get it in something, right? It's actually in a structured format where the labels have been defined by data, right? And then you can actually test and validate that with an engaged community that does predictions on whether those data are right. So like, we're not necessarily trying to do the reproducibility part because to Douglas's point, like all of the software versions change. In our world, time has moved on and that microbe is no longer the same microbe that it was. And so reproducibility has very serious limitations. But if you can actually take that knowledge, validate it in another question in another system and generalize it, that, I think, is the best way to actually move the science questions forward.
I want to learn more about that.
Sure, happy to.
Thanks. Okay. Kelsey, I don't know. You're next. Oh, Leslie has her hand up too. So hopefully whatever you saw is what you're going to do next.
I was going to speak.
Oh, you have your hand up. Oh my God. Kelsey, go, do.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Heelsman. I'm the ESIP fellow that's supporting this session, but I work with the Biological Data Standards Cluster, and I feel like the last few questions have really, I've had similar thoughts to the last few questions, especially Corey's. That's like, and yours, I remember your name, Matt's comment about like, can we be more like Zenodo? Like, if we can't beat them, join them idea. And so what I'm thinking about is kind of similar to that, which is like, do we have these sort of domain-specific standards I'm an ecologist. I'm familiar with biological data standards from working on this document, these guides that the Biological Data Standards Cluster have made. But can we have something like that for every domain? So, and you know, if someone's putting their data on Zenodo, is that kind of the way forward to sort of have these domain-specific standards?
Yeah.
And we sort of, the way that we tackled this actually builds in FAIR, but is sort of just like, what are good ways to make your data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducible in biological data? I would also like to plug, I have a poster about producing the guides and about the guides themselves tomorrow, and would love feedback from everyone who, especially if you work with biological data, but even if you do something adjacent, that's cool too. Stop by and I would love to chat more about this.
That is so cool. Man who is not, Mike, is that you? Mike hasn't talked yet. And then, so while Mike is talking, which I want you to pay attention to what Mike is saying. Okay, all right, I'll wait then.
I don't have much to add to this discussion, but just to share kind of a success story with the ocean sites community.
Yeah.
And this is deep water, persistent moorings, global, lots of engagement. And the PIs on the project recognized the need for interoperability early on in the project. And they funded their data managers, their actual technicians who wrote the data files after the moorings were recovered, to talk to other data managers around the world, you know, actually fund their travel to make this happen. And we got a document that's shared, is specific to the physical oceanography and meteorological community. And it's these domain-specific, community-driven, bottom-up that needs to happen to have success, I think.
Snap. Yes. Okay, so everybody who's online, everybody who's in the room, in your mind, we've had a lot of rants. There's everything is connected to everything. We're all generally heading in the right way. Is there, of the initial intention for getting you all together, what did we not yet talk about? We don't have to get into detail, but like bullet items, like topics. Okay, 5 minutes. Rob. What does it mean for, what is the role of a specialist repository?
Yeah, in the direction that we want to take things.
Repository in the future. I need you to say more.
Okay.
Can someone run him the mic?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It's okay, Kelsey. No, Canberra cannot hear you. Let's just call that out.
Loud enough, okay. Basically, I represent a specialist repository, in effect, at least two main domains. So when we're talking about FAIR, we're always asking, what can our data center do to better elevate what's necessary for the researcher to be able to supply the information they need? Do they have everything from us that we can provide that will give them what they need with the idea of something that's interoperable, reproducible, et cetera?
Okay.
It puts a lot of burden on us, depending on how far they want to go. Like if just taking things to the extreme, because we deal with continuous data and lots of microtransactions, it seems unfeasible or infeasible for us to put a DOI stamp on every data set we send out. That would not work. It would be a mess for the end researcher because they collect it all up. They do aggregates and reprocessing and so forth. It'd be meaningless to do so. So it's like, okay, as we talk about making things very referentiable and reproducible and solid, what do we have to do? I just figure we haven't covered that particular.
I really like that. So my synthesis of that was the value statement, the needs of your researchers. I gave an example, but I'm also calling out the fact that seismology data is very special in that constant stream, and it doesn't make sense to put a DOI in every data set. So what is your solution for the general FAIR issue? Yeah, okay.
Can I so I want to actually agree with Rob this time. And because back to this point with Zenodo is not the enemy. Zenodo is a partner in all of this. Zenodo doesn't, they have no desire to take all the data. They would love to work with domain repositories. So what I think we need to be thinking about is the submission of the data is just the beginning of a conversation, and that's sort of what Kirsten was getting at. And Zenodo would like to do that too, but they don't have the resources. And so we need to be thinking about sort of a path, and I think this is kind of what Rob was getting at, and there's levels of service. You might have a fair-ish data set, and then it might become a bit more fair. And so because fair is a spectrum and a endless quest. But basic fairness is actually not that hard, because all we're talking about is making it findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable at a very crude level for very stupid machines. We're not, and so we have to remember that FAIR is only for machines. And it's not about repositories, it's about data. And so figure out what that first low bar is, and then we can become a lot closer to the ease of Zenodo while having fair-ish data, and then continue.
Okay. Can we move wildly to another topic?
No, it's
10:30.
8:30. It's,
Matt, what's your topic really quickly?
You asked for some new things to do. So, and actually, I think one of the things is around kind of vocabularies, ontologies, knowledge graphs. They haven't got anywhere to live. And they're as unsustainable as everything else, but they need somewhere to.
Okay. All righty. So Leslie, over to you to close out. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, I'm in shock. You've given us kind of lots to think about. And I think we'll put our heads together as chairs and keep coming. Join the mailing list. We do have now an Australia, a European-friendly time and a US-friendly time. Of late, we have actually been getting some publishers and editors to come along. So let's just keep the conversation going. Kirsten, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you summarized it really well. I see. My question is, can we somehow archive or, save at least the chat, because there are some good ideas in. I truly believe, I'm also glad that Ken raised this issue again, that we haven't talked about the future of Coptis at all. Somehow there are lots of things to do, but it's also about who's going to run the show and how we're going to improve our communication channels to include more publishers and editors and so on. I think there's much to discuss, but it was a great discussion, and thank you all for this. Great ideas, and I'm especially thrilled about the discussion actually of the generalist repositories and specifically Zenodo being a partner as we're approaching or are already in the midst of a repository crisis. We need to investigate those opportunities as well. So with that, I hope to see many of you in future Coptis meetings.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Canberra. Thank you, everybody else online. There are other comments that we're going to grab from the chat. So thank you to Emberaka and John.
Just real quick, this is Joseph again. Again, there are 2 sessions tomorrow, which means there's an hour and a half for all of you to skewer me over Zenodo and generalist repositories tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.